Be sure to hit like, subscribe, and click the little bell to be notified of future videos. Hello, in this video today, I want to talk to you about taking a South America and Antarctica cruise. So I've done both the South America cruise and the Antarctica cruise. And I want to talk to you about some tips about taking a cruise around the South America Horn and to Antarctica. So we're going to include both in the same video. So let's talk about how to do that cruise. So one thing about a cruise to Antarctica is if you're on a ship with more than 500 people, which is most big cruise ships, you're not allowed to dock or get off the ship in Antarctica. So all you can do is scenic cruise. If you're on a ship with less than 500 people, you are able to get off the ship, but it's highly regulated, and that's by treaty. So as you've probably noticed, when you're shopping for your Antarctica and South America cruise, one of the first things that you're aware of is the cost. So going down there can be quite expensive. So I highly recommend that you talk to a travel agent and see if they can find any good deals that are affordable. So I know that sometimes taking a big cruise ship is a little bit cheaper than going on the smaller ships that leave from Ushuaia. But definitely talk to your travel agent and find out what they can find for you to get you down around South America Horn and into Antarctica. And hopefully the cost won't be such a big issue for you. So let's talk about the itineraries for the Antarctica and South America cruise. There's 4 basic itineraries that you can do on this cruise. So the first itinerary leaves from Buenos Aires. And what you do is you go from Buenos Aires down south to the Horn of South America, and then the ship turns and you go up to Santiago. So the second itinerary leaves from Buenos Aires or Santiago, and you go down to the Horn of South America, and then you continue from the Horn across the Drake Passage to Antarctica. So that's the next itinerary. The third itinerary is that you leave from Buenos Aires or Santiago, you go to the Horn, continue down to Antarctica, and then you turn around and come back to your departure port. So in this case, we leave from Buenos Aires and we return to Buenos Aires. The fourth itinerary for a South America and Antarctica cruise leaves from Ushuaia. And in this video, we're not going to talk about cruises that depart from Ushuaia because most of those cruises are less than 500 people. And the cruises that we're talking about are ships that have more than 500 people on them. So those are the basic itineraries for a South America and Antarctica cruise. So one of the things you want to do about taking a South America and Antarctica cruise is take seasick medicine. So in school, we all learned about the treacherous waters around Cape Horn and the Drake Passage. And guess what? It's still like that. So take seasick medicine. Sometimes people get what's called the Drake Lake, which means the Drake Passage is calm and smooth. And other times the people get the Drake Shake, which means the Drake Passage is very rough. So both of the times that we were down there around Cape Horn and the Drake Passage were very rough. So just be aware of that fact. Anyway, if you like rough water, it's fun. If not, take your seasick medicine and you'll be okay. A piece of advice that I have for going to South America and Antarctica is take binoculars and take a camera with zoom. So that was my mistake. My camera did not have a good zoom. So everywhere you go in South America and Antarctica, you're going to see lots of wildlife. You'll see whales, you'll see lots of albatross, you'll see penguins, and they're pretty much everywhere. So if you have a zoom and your binoculars, you can see them as you go. So when you're at the Horn, you'll want it so that you can see the Albatross Monument and the lighthouse at the Cape Horn. And then if you go on to Antarctica, you're going to want it so that you can see the penguins that are living on the icebergs. So if you're just doing South America, you'll also see penguins everywhere you go. So definitely take the zoom on your camera and take a pair of binoculars. Don't make the same mistake that I made when I did that trip. Oh, by the way, it's also a good idea to take an extra battery for your camera and an extra SD card, just in case you're one of those people that take a lot of pictures. When we did this trip, it was 80 degrees in Buenos Aires. We got to Ushuaia and it was 50 degrees. We got to Cape Horn and it was very damp and wet and it was cold and it was 40 degrees. Then we crossed the Drake Passage and got into Antarctica and it was in the 20s and 30s. So when you're packing, that's one thing you need to consider, is that you're going to need to bring some summer clothes for hot and warm Santiago and Buenos Aires, and then you're going to need to bring cooler clothes for Ushuaia, the Horn, and Antarctica. So you have to dress in layers as you go on this trip. My final piece of advice about the South America and Antarctica trip is get travel insurance. It's an expensive trip, and you want to make sure that if anything happens, you're covered just in case. So maybe you get sick before you go and are not able to go on the trip, you want insurance to cover it. Maybe you're down there and something happens and you need insurance to get home. So definitely make sure you have travel insurance just in case. It's worth it. If your schedule and your budget allow it, I highly recommend a trip up to Iguazu. From Buenos Aires or Santiago, you can fly up to Iguazu Falls. It's a couple-hour flight, and you'll see one of the world's wonders. So it's a national park that spans the border of Argentina and Brazil. And it's a neat area because it's the world's widest waterfall. So you've got lots of waterfalls in a tropical jungle. And then you've got Brazil on one side, Argentina on the other. And if you go down the road just a little bit, you can go into Paraguay. So the three borders are right there at Iguazu. Highly recommend this side trip from your cruise. So I highly recommend that everybody take a South America and Antarctica cruise at least once in their life. It's a highly unusual experience, and seeing both of those places, Cape Horn and Antarctica, are definitely two experiences that everybody should explore.